Hi everyone, this is Karen from the Peace Discipline channel where you can learn more about nonviolent discipline. In today's video, we'll be looking at natural consequences, what they are, when to use them, and when not to. This video will be relevant to parents, to teachers, and anyone else who works with or cares for children. What is a natural consequence? A natural consequence is something which happens naturally as a result of a child's behavior without any intervention from you. That's the important piece. The consequence is not enforced by the adult. It just happens without you making it happen. For example, if a child spends all their pocket money on the first day they get it, the natural consequence of that is having no money for a while. Another example, in a house where everyone is responsible to do their own laundry, you don't have to nag a teenager to do their washing. A natural consequence takes care of that. If you don't do your laundry, you run out of clothes. Natural consequences are one way in which we learn, and so they can be a useful tool in discipline. Is it always good to use natural consequences? No. Some natural consequences are harmful. Most of us can remember experiencing harmful natural consequences at some point as children. Perhaps your parents warned you not to touch something hot, but you managed to touch it anyway and got burned. These experiences happen, and we learn from them. But what about the parent that says, touch it, knowing that the child will get burned and thinking that they're teaching them by using natural consequences? Or the parent that gets frustrated with their child's reluctance to brush their teeth and says, fine, don't brush your teeth then, see what happens to you. The child stops brushing their teeth and pretty soon gets a cavity. At this point, the parent says, see, it's sore now, it's because you didn't brush your teeth. These parents may think that their children are learning from natural consequences, but what they're actually learning is that they can't rely on their parents for protection and guidance. In both of these cases, the parent was right there, but did not act to stop the child from experiencing a harmful consequence. In fact, they told their child to do something which ended up hurting them. That is super confusing for the child. Teachers can also be guilty of this. A matric student was very upset when, just before the exams, the teacher said to the class, you see, now we didn't finish the syllabus, that's because you were so disruptive during the year. The class was like, there was a syllabus? The student quite rightly felt that this was unfair, especially since she and some of the other students had not been disruptive themselves. The class did not know what work needed to be covered at that point in the year. It was the teacher's job to think about the syllabus, to make sure everything was covered, and to manage any disruptive behavior in the class to create an atmosphere conducive to learning. She hadn't managed this, and now she was blaming the class. In these examples, at home and at school, these children are learning that they cannot rely on their parents or teacher for guidance and protection. They were allowed to do something and then made wrong for doing it. It was confusing and they got hurt, even though the adult was right there and could have guided them in a different direction. Parent or teacher may think they're using natural consequences. In these cases, this was actually an abdication of their responsibility to protect children from harm. This is not a positive skill. This is a form of neglect. Leaving things up to harmful natural consequences is often a sign that the parent or teacher did not have good boundaries with the child. Having good boundaries and knowing how to stop children when they're doing something that may end up in them getting hurt is an important part of keeping children safe. If you're not sure how to have healthy boundaries with children, keep watching these videos because that's what this channel is all about. So to sum up what we've covered so far, natural consequences are one way that we learn, and so they can be a useful tool in discipline. Leaving things up to harmful natural consequences is not good discipline. In fact, it's a form of neglect. There are things we need to protect our children from. We don't want them finding out about sunblock and dental hygiene and seatbelts and busy roads the hard way. So how do we use natural consequences appropriately? Let's have a look at a few real examples and whether the use of natural consequences was appropriate or not. Let's get you dressed. I want to wear the purple top. The purple top is for cold weather. It's got long sleeves and it's thick and warm. It's too warm for a hot day like this. But I want to wear it. Why don't we try this t-shirt instead? I want the warm top. It's 30 degrees outside. I want the warm top. Okay, I can see that you really want to wear the warm top. Shall we give it a try and see how it feels for you? Yes. Mommy? Yes? I'm hot. Are you cooking in that top? I'm boiling. Okay, let's take it off and try something cooler. I can wear this one on a cold day. Yes, then it will be perfect. This mom is patient with her child's learning process. She already knows that the top is too warm, but she allows her child to try it and find out for themselves through the natural consequence of feeling hot. Notice how she doesn't make the child wrong for trying it. She doesn't rub it in, say, told you so. Instead, she reflects back what the child says so that they can be more aware of their own experience and learn from it. If it were the middle of winter and the child wanted to go to school barefoot and in a bathing costume, I'm sure mom would have found a way to get them to wear something warmer, because otherwise they would have got too cold and got sick. Now, getting sick is a natural consequence. It's a harmful natural consequence, so she's going to act to avoid that. Here's another example. Father and mother were disagreeing over what to do in response to their son's lack of interest in working on his school project. Mom felt they should help him more. Dad felt they should leave him and let him get 0 for the project when he didn't hand anything in. Let him face the consequences, he said. Then he'll learn. With an older child, it might have been different. This boy was in grade 3, and this was the first time he had to do this kind of project. So in this case, I agreed with Mom. He did not have enough experience to know what it took to get a project like this done, and he definitely needed support and help with time management. Not supporting him, letting him get 0 for his very first project, would be unnecessarily demoralizing for him and neglectful on the part of the parents. So, not the time to use natural consequences. On the theme of school projects, a friend who owned a shop told me that a parent came in and bought a craft item the day before their child's school project was due, so that their child, who hadn't done a stitch of work, could pass it off the next day as their project. Here, the parent is rescuing the child in an unhealthy way. Instead of allowing the child to face consequences at school, this parent is helping the child to lie, cheat, and take credit for someone else's work. Not only is this parent getting in the way of consequences which could have taught their child something, they are also supporting really dishonest behavior. If they wanted to help their child to avoid negative consequences at school, that would be fine. They could have intervened in a much more constructive way by helping their child earlier in the process to get materials and manage their time. Perhaps they also could have cut screen time until an appropriate amount of project work was done, where at least the child would have done some work. One more example. A primary school child saw a toy in the shop and wanted to buy it. His mother expressed concern that it would break very easily. He still wanted it. His mother said that she wouldn't buy it because of concerns over the quality, but if he wanted to use his own pocket money to buy it, he could. Sure enough, the toy broke very soon after he bought it. This is an example of a natural consequence because, other than expressing concern, there was no intervention on the part of the mom other than allowing him to buy it and experience the natural consequence of buying something that was poorly made. At this point, the mom did not say, "I told you so," or give him a lecture. She let the natural consequence do the work. The boy could decide for himself whether it had been worth it. If he had felt it was worth it, mom would have accepted that, because the point of allowing him the freedom to purchase it and experience that natural consequence was for him to learn about which purchases were worth it for him and which were not. Years later, he expressed how much he appreciated having his own money as a child and being allowed to learn how to manage it. At this stage, as a young adult, he is very responsible with how he spends his money and pays careful attention to the quality of the product. So how should we use natural consequences? First, make sure the natural consequence is not in any way dangerous or harmful. If you think it is harmful, intervene and help the child to avoid that consequence. If you've decided that it's safe for the child to learn from a natural consequence, then there's not much more that you need to do, because by definition, a natural consequence is something that happens without you making it happen. What you do need to do is get out of the way of the natural consequence. How does an adult get in the way? One way is by rescuing the child from a perfectly harmless natural consequence, such as buying the child a new clothing item because they haven't done their laundry. Another way a parent could get in the way is doing an I told you so, giving a lecture. Nobody likes this. The child might be on their way to learning something constructive as part of that natural consequence, but then become defensive and switch off because of the way the parent is rubbing it in with that lecture. If you want to say something, it would be better to use an open-ended question such as, how do you feel about it? Or, what was that like for you? Then listen, reflect back what the child is saying. For example, so it was a really frustrating experience, or that sounds really stressful. Then you could ask another open-ended question like, what do you think you'll do next time? So to sum up, protect the child from harmful natural consequences, but allow them to learn from the non-harmful ones. Like any other discipline tool, natural consequences are not good or bad in themselves. They're good if we use them with attunement to the child. They're good if the child is developmentally ready for them, if they can learn from them without being harmed. So let's work at attuning to each child, reading their signals, and responding according to what they really need. Because attunement to the child, rather than any particular discipline tool, is the key to good discipline. That's all for now. I'll be back soon with more on nonviolent discipline. Please like if you found this video helpful. Don't forget to subscribe. If you would like more information, you can visit the Peace Discipline website. You will find a free nonviolent discipline toolkit and some published research. Resources such as the toolkit and these videos are free to promote safer environments for children, so please share them with others who may find them helpful. Thanks for watching.